Welcome to the Sage Advice Podcast, transforming the way people think and work so their organizations can thrive. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Ed Kless, and today's episode is cut from another podcast of which I am the co-host, The Soul of Enterprise, which is also sponsored by Sage. The Soul of Enterprise is dedicated to belief that business has a spiritual, though not necessarily religious, component. I hope you enjoy this excerpt. If you do, please visit www.thesoulofenterprise.com for more.
You know, I guess the simplest way of describing it is how do we build organizations that are as daring and resilient and creative as the people who work inside of them. And, most organizations, they struggle to keep up with change today. They are often not the authors of game-changing innovation. And the data says that many of them are quite kind of soulless places to work, but that's not who we are as individuals. We have all the qualities our organizations so desperately need. So the book is really about how do we get rid of that top-down, bureaucratic, rule-driven culture that still predominates in most organizations and build organizations where people can actually thrive.
Right. And before we dive in, Gary, I just have to ask you this too. Is this book a logical extension of the future of management? Does your thinking kind of evolve over the years?
Yeah, I think the argument in the future of management was simply to say that management, the way we lead, plan, organize, allocate, is a very important area for innovation. In fact, if you go back through industrial history and even through military history over 800 years, you find that long-term advantage came less from technology, from products, from strategies, but really from new ways of working together that unleashed human capabilities. And so we were simply making that argument in the future of management. We really have to start thinking just the way, we think about today, innovating in our business models. You have to think about innovating in your management model. The current book, Humanocracy, is much more a guide on how to do that with some, I hope, some very clear aiming points. And we make the point that as daunting as this challenge is of kind of uninstalling bureaucracy and building something better in its place, anybody can start wherever they are in their organization to help create that kind of future.
Right, because one of the things you say is once a company hits a certain threshold in size, that bureaucracy starts growing faster than the organization itself.
Well, I see that living in Silicon Valley, I see all these young, amazingly vibrant companies. And in fact, I would argue the primary advantage that a young company has over an incumbent is usually not that they have like a business idea nobody ever has thought of, but they're lean, they're fast, they're flat, they're open, they're free. And they just move much quicker. And yet, I see this again and again. Once you get to a couple of hundred people, you start to hire kind of the professional managers. They bring in all the systems, the structures that they're familiar with, kind of try to bring some order to the place. And yeah, right about at that point, bureaucracy starts growing faster. You have more committee meetings, more layers, more staff groups. Employees feel more constrained. They get slotted into roles. They have to ask permission for just about everything. And then typically, that just continues apace. And then you end up with, the typical large organization has eight management layers, is sclerotic, legal has to sign off on everything. So I think, and we've been told, and I think it's a lie, but we've basically been told there is no way to do things at scale. There is no way to get the control and the consistency you need at scale without having the trappings of bureaucracy. And in the book, I hope I convincingly argue that's not the case, that you can build a highly disciplined, highly focused, highly efficient organization and still have basically none of the trappings of management. Not the big staff groups, not the multiple layers, not the rule-driven culture. And it takes some imagination to create an alternative, because the default setting is, let's just like run the model that we see all around us every day.
For more Sage advice, visit and subscribe at sageadvicepodcast.com.